Let's go ahead and start with our introductions. I know Pete, I believe, is on vacation, and I know Karen is wrapping up a Children's Week at the mall, so I knew they weren't going to be here. Chip.
Chip Worrells with Thomas Jefferson Planning District and the MPO.
Morgan Butler, Southern Environmental Law Center.
Mark Graham, Albemarle County.
Brad Sheffield, Albemarle County Board of Supervisors.
Henry Wangshank, Express Commerce Consultants.
Okay, and our technical team, Ryan, go ahead and let everybody know who you are.
I'm Ryan Hinder. I'm an intern at the Charlottesville Residency.
Joel Denunzio, Charlottesville Residency.
Dave Covington, VDOT Charlottesville Residency.
Debbie Messina, Phillips Ucant Company.
Linda Collett, VDOT IT Support.
Al Jones, VDOT Charlottesville Residency.
It just occurred to me a few minutes ago, I'm not sure why we always relegate Hal to this side of the room. Somebody's got to hold down that part of the
Oh, it was his choice.
I think it is.
That's a lot of good judgment on this behalf.
Well, no, seriously, thank you. Thank you.
John Lynch when he shows up.
Yeah, to sit with John, you're right.
Field of power.
Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll take a look at our interaction from the last meeting. All about the same. 15 people tuned in over the internet. Maybe a few fewer streams, individual streams. 21 minutes per stream. Still holds about the same. As far as the email inbox, Lou is on a well-deserved vacation. Lou Hatter. So if you notice he's not here today, I hope he's not one of the ones watching and is enjoying himself. But these are the emails that came into the project inbox that Lou monitors. One asked for some additional details about on the Route 29 widening project, particularly the switchovers at North Hollymead and Ashbrook. This is when those lane changes were taking place. And Lou responded, gave this person the information they needed. One inquired about VDOT accelerating the design and construction and the bonus in view of Virginia's procurement laws. And in reading this comment a couple of times, I believe this person was actually referring to accelerated payments in advance of work. Everything done here has been done strictly in accordance with the procurement laws as far as the design-build contract and as far as the calculation and determination of adding an incentive. No money was paid in advance of work performed. In fact, no money was paid until work was performed, invoices submitted after the work was performed, and then reviewed and approved by VDOT. So there's nothing out of step with any of the procurement laws at all in the award or execution of this contract. One asked for a total cost of the RIO GSI and suggested that it costs more than what a bypass would have cost. The last estimate I saw for the bypass was about $235 million total. The GSI is right around the $69 million mark. On your next budget review, if you recall, at our next meeting, instead of looking at the design-build projects, we're going to look at them as 3 individual projects instead of all rolled up. But right around the $69 million mark, if you pull the design-build contract apart, would be at the GSI. And that's not to make any comparison between it and the bypass. A larger project would have cost more money. One suggested adding some signs and pavement markings on Route 29 southbound for earlier notification of the local and through lane split. And we kind of got this comment on the other side as well, as should there be more signs about the merging traffic, there aren't any plans to put up more signs in that regard at the moment. I mean, I think traffic is still settling in. That needs to have some time to work. Dave, I don't know if there's any more to say about that. We just haven't seen the need to add signs. I do think you plan on sharpening up some pavement markings.
Well, we already did that.
You already did that.
Through the intersection.
Yeah.
We go in and mill and overlay new pavement markings with the thermoplastic will be put down. They'll be more visible unless the pavement markings will be much improved.
All right. Thank you.
I was going to wait until I looked at it again or took a picture, but at least passing through a couple of times, southbound, heading towards the intersection, and it may even be on both sides of the road. I think it says something like Rio, next intersect, Rio something. I was thinking just on that sign alone, not adding more signs, if it said right lanes, because the way I read it, and again, I need to look at it again, it was almost as if it didn't matter what lanes you were in, you could expect Rio to be at the next intersection. But if you were on the inside, you were going to have to go under it anyway. I'll relook at it, but I just thought that there's the big green that says Rio kind of ahead, but if it just said right 2 lanes, it might
So it's
add
in the
some
median?
clarity.
It's in the median, this sign you're talking
If
about?
I remember right, it's on both the right
Both
and
sides.
left.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
on both median and the shoulder.
It's in advance of the.
Yes, it's in advance.
Yeah, in advance of the overheads, okay.
In the median.
Yeah.
On both sides?
On both
That's what he's
sides.
saying. Okay.
Just, I mean, as I was going
Okay.
through it, I thought if it said,
Yeah.
right 2 lanes, it might be a little bit clearer.
Okay.
I think that's part of this little excursion that I'm suggesting.
Yeah. There was one complaint about trucks running red lights and driving side by side. This, in the last 24 hours, there's been a few more exchanges about trucks speeding on Earlysville Road. Clearly, the requirement is to obey the law. And I know every meeting that Dave has with the contractor, this issue is brought up and reinforced, and not pointing fingers anywhere, but it's difficult to tell from the comments whose trucks these are. You know, there is a quarry operation. I'm not suggesting it's a quarry. There is a quarry operation that has trucks on Earlysville Road. I know the speed limit has just been reduced there at the request of the county. We've generally, I think, regularly shared this information with Albemarle County law enforcement. All I can say is that should any of this point back to Lane Corman or to VDOT for that matter, I mean, it just wouldn't be tolerated. So I'm not sure what more to say. If we have comments like this, we'll try to get as much detail out of them as possible. Safety is, for those of you that are more familiar with the construction business, if there's 2 people in the room, the first thing they talk about is safety. It's just ingrained in that industry. And certainly obeying traffic laws is a pretty high priority for a bunch of folks who are in the business of building transportation facilities. If you hear of anything, the more specific information you can get, pass on, the better. In the meantime, we'll stay on top of the message on our side and certainly continue to pass along that type of information, not only to the residency, but to Albemarle County as well. The there was one, well, we did get one kind of thank you note, just one good job note. I'm sorry, I already went through the one about signs. There was one complaint about the retaining walls at the GSI. I mean, the walls are there, and if you drive through, you're going to look at the walls. So there's not much to
Somebody that
do
woke
there.
up late, but obviously that was one of the arguments early in the game. There were some of us.
Well, it was certainly one of the conversations. Yeah,
You know.
but
a problem.
the project could not have been built without those retaining walls.
Well, we know that. And
So-
some of us knew it back then. And,
Yeah.
this is the price we're paying. Not
Pardon?
seeing those business, yes. It's
Yeah.
part and parcel of the deal, yeah.
One complaint about rough pavement at the GSI. We talked about a little bit about that 2 weeks ago. The requirement for the intermediate milestone was the interim milestone was the intermediate course. That final paving is scheduled 22nd. I'm trying to think, is that next week or week after next? But it's scheduled for the 22nd. So before long, we'll have that final pavement down. Hello, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Bill, one point.
Yes.
I know we talked about the possibility of maybe painting the manhole covers that were sticking up. Has that been done? Or
Yes.
Is that, okay.
Yeah, they put some spray paint around them so that when they mill and pave, the manhole lids aren't still painted, but it's on the asphalt around them.
Okay.
And there was one inquiry about exiting Forest Lakes to 29 southbound at 5 a.m. It wasn't an inquiry about something that happened at 5 a.m., but during some of the work that was going on, this person needs to get out to 29 southbound early, and Lou provided them with some information. There were no new postings at the time we put the presentation together. There were a couple last night and this morning, and that had to do with the speeding of trucks on Early Bills Road that we talked about a little bit ago. The project hotline got 3 phone calls, just basically questions about driveway access and mail delivery after the 29 widening traffic shift that we knew has been scheduled, and Dave will tell us a little bit more about that in his project updates. Chris, I think, talked to both of those individuals. And one was concerned about a drainage issue on 29 widening in Forest Lakes. I think you also talked to the project folks.
Yeah,
Did that get resolved?
It got resolved. The issue was the night that downburst
Right.
caused a lot of standing water on 29 northbound, and this person called, wanted to confirm what the drainage requirements were. I explained to them that that road was designed for a 10-year design storm for the roadway itself. The cross drains are typically 25 or 50 year. I went back and looked at the intensity curves, and when a downburst occurs like that, it's not even on the chart.
Yeah.
So you can't design for that. However, the design has been confirmed that it is in accordance with the criteria required.
Okay.
And the contractors have gone back, deepened ditches, laid back some slopes, and confirmed that both the new storm drain structures and the existing structures that have remained in place have been cleaned and are functioning properly.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Some items from the last meeting, and I think these first, or 4 of these were actually brought up by Karen in a note before the last meeting. Nope. Go, I think 2 forward. Temporary traffic signals on Route 29 northbound. These were the ones that were coincidentally lined up perfectly with the arrows, lane arrows on the overhead signs. This says the temporary northbound signal head has been removed, but since then, in the last day, all the temporary span wires and signal heads are gone. So it was unusual for the way those signal heads lined up with those arrows for just a moment. But that's all gone. Karen asked, and I think Chris Engel also asked last time, will traffic data be collected at the GSI for the through and local lanes? The answer is yes. We'll talk about it a little bit more on agenda item 9. When will the lights, and this not signal lights, but the other lights, be operational at Rio GSI? Those should be installed and operational within the next 2 weeks. Will there be a sign, talked about this a minute ago, noting merging traffic for Route 29 southbound through traffic south of the GSI? There's not any additional traffic signs contemplated right now. And what Karen, I actually followed up with her. What she was talking about was she was wondering, she asked a question about southbound, the local lane, southbound, south of the GSI, traffic exiting some of those businesses that are looking to merge back into Route 29 south. And without getting technical, there's really not much of a merge there. I mean, the local lanes are the local lanes, and the through lanes are the through lanes, and yeah, they do come back together in the condition they were always in.
Well, I think what happens is you're leaving Jiffy Lube, let's say, and you want to go to Fashion Square. You will cross across the lanes that think that they're kind of express. And conversely, the same thing happens on the other end. You're coming out from the underpass, and there is traffic that wants to get right where you are because they want to make the turn into Lowe's. So I think that's what she's referring to. That there is the nature of the beast is that that's going to happen.
Well,
how you deal with it best, I don't know yet, but that's I think the problem that she's referring to.
Yeah, I don't think you deal with it with a sign. I mean, it's the condition that existed before.
I say I'm not offering a solution.
Yeah.
I'm offering a kind of trying to understand the problem a little bit.
Right.
Because I've been there myself.
Yeah.
Even deciding, okay, I'm going to Lowe's, should I go on the local or should I go on the I'm going to but then obviously the people that are on the local because they need to turn off Rio or whatever, they also want to get into that turn lane. So there is this weave. It's the nature of the beast because it's not an expressway, it's just an underpass.
Right.
So I cannot offer a solution yet, but I think that's the problem to watch.
This is a situation that we've handled through design, and specifically it's a site distance issue. So if you have a site distance issue for people accessing 29 from the businesses that are very close to where those lanes converge, the first thing is we have that long door area that after the end of the wall that helps to increase that site distance. The second thing is if somebody is exiting that doesn't have adequate sight distance that shoots across, the person driving through the through lanes has adequate sight distance to be able to slow down or stop to avoid.
Yeah, provided that they're so fine.
That's the expectation.
Yeah, well, I mean, I deal with this issue every so often. Well, people that drive the way I wouldn't drive, but I do.
Well, there's not any plans for additional signs of that nature now. I mean, that's a situation we can watch, but there's no plans for that now. Are there any, and a couple of us have discussed this, are there any plans for additional directional business signing other than the Todd signs? And no, not at this time. There's no plans for additional signs to the businesses. That Todd's program, which to my knowledge has never been used before as extensively as we used it here, and for the purpose we used it here, was meant to serve that purpose. And if you'll recall, folks will have an opportunity to remain on signs at the cost of the annual fee, and that starts, I think those letters go out in August, and that program would start August of 2017, and then the fees would start in October. The period of time to talk about anything you like on the next agenda or any issues. Chip? Okay. Nope. Nope. Henry? Okay. Okay, let's take a look at the percent completes. We told you we would, if you recall, this used to go through 2016. Dave and his folks went back and looked at the schedules, and we've now moved half of this to get us through December, and then through the first 6 months of 2017. Just to refresh our memory, items that are in that color, yellow, that color, this color, are underway. If there's no shading, those items haven't started yet, but we see when they're scheduled. A few of the items that were completed, we carried over here. So we see that the lighting should wrap up before the end of this month. On the GSI, landscaping and hardscaping over the next couple of months, wall staining, September and October. And then just a reminder, December the 2nd is the contract completion date for the RIO GSI. The final paving, their schedule shows September and October, but as we heard, they plan to get that wrapped up before the end of this month. Punch list, obviously, would be at the end. On 29 widening, some work underway on the waterline relocations. This particular phase, and Dave will have to certainly remind me of phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But they've got some staggered phasing for the staggered schedules for their grading, drainage, and paving. The last one starts in June of next year, and then that schedule carries on out. So good progress at Route 29 widening. Berkmar really continues to go at a good clip. Roadway construction south of the river is 40% complete. That does continue on through July of 2017. Same for the roadway north of the river, 40%. Pier construction, 95% complete. Starting the deck construction would come on the heels of that in September. Steel girder erection will get started. Will they get started before the end of this month? Next month? Next month?
Late this month.
And then following on to that, parapets, abutment slabs, and railing. This sewer relocation is being completed previously. Hillsdale, don't have the schedule in yet. We did get the schedule on Monday. Hal and his folks are reviewing it with the city, and on the 25th, we'll have some construction milestones here for you on the Hillsdale project. But on our call on Monday, it sounded like everything was going the way it needed to go. There's been some mobilization out in the field, wrapping up this utility relocation, and the contractors getting ready to go to work, which is good news. Dave did have this scheduled out through December. The only reason I didn't add it on here is because that picture gets pretty small, and as we get closer into the fourth quarter, we'll pull this up again and drop some more dates in on the rest of the projects for 2017. We'll use the same format as long as that's good with everybody. Okay. All right. Well, Dave,
update us on your projects here?
Okay, thank you. I feel a little awkward not starting with 29-250 interchange anymore. Now we've moved on, but on the Rio GSI project, really we're moving on to a lot of punch list items and asphalt paving. The stormwater management facility 4 we talked about for a little while. That's just a repair that actually should be completed tonight. They worked on it last night, finished it up tonight. Wall repairs, they continue to work on those at night. These are areas that just need to be dressed up from when they constructed them, trying to get them done quickly. This is a normal process with having some items to go back and touch up. Signal wire labeling. So on the signal, there's a ton of wires that are going every which way, so they need to label all those. That's what they've been working on generally during the day. Pulling the wire for the Berkmar-Rio signals. Last fall, they bored all the conduit under there, so now they're just pulling the wire through the conduit, getting all that set up. Installing the remaining pedestrian lights and the through lane lighting, and installing the signal foundations for the Berkmar-Rio intersection. And if you recall, that signal is being completely reconstructed with the Rio GSI project. We pushed it down the road a little bit because we made a change to that signal to add the flashing yellow left arrows that you've probably seen at some local intersections lately. I know we did the same thing at the Woodbrook and Brookmar intersection, so it'll look similar to that. So a few pictures here. Obviously these pictures aren't as exciting as what we saw over the summertime, but this is the kind of stuff that they've been working on recently. We see a new island that's been poured here. This is in the northeast quadrant of the intersection, and it's stained a darker gray color and has the aesthetic treatment there on the top, the architectural treatment that'll be consistent throughout the project. Next slide. This picture just kind of shows the pedestrian lighting progress. I want to say the vast majority of the pedestrian light poles are installed. There's a few more to install, and then they need to install the through lane lighting, and then they'll turn it all on. So we'll get to see what that lighting looks like pretty soon, as Philip mentioned, from our schedule review over the next couple of weeks. So lane closures this week, again, we're back to the 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. time frame. Nighttime lane closures, no daytime lane closures. Next slide. So over the next 2 weeks, and as we go through every meeting, this list keeps getting shorter and shorter, which is what we want to see. But again, addressing the punch list items, continuing to work on the Berkmar and Rio signal reconstruction, installing the loop detectors at 29 and Rio, and they have to actually cut those into the asphalt. So when they finish up the milling and overlay, putting down the new asphalt, they'll cut the loops in. So right now, our detection is through cameras at Rio. After that's done, it'll be from the asphalt pavement detectors. And installing the pedestrian poles and signal uprights at the Berkmar and Rio signal. That has pedestrian crossings as well.
Dave, do you have any sense of when the 9 to 6 closures will end? Any rough sense?
Contract says December 2nd. If we recall looking at the schedule that Philip was talking about, the wall staining ended in October. So end of October, I think, is the target that they're shooting for. And when we talk of, so what's the largest item to complete at this point before that? It's the wall staining.
Okay.
There's a lot of staining to be done, so if I had to bet, I would think late October. All right, and then same lane closures for the next 2 weeks. Any other questions on Rio? Okay, so 29 widening. This week, we had a big traffic shift last week, shifted all the traffic over to the median lanes. That was phase 2. This opens up the whole southbound, the previous southbound lanes, existing southbound lanes for them to work in. That's where a lot of that widening is going to occur. And some of the grade correction as well to get rid of those kind of ups and downs. So a lot of this is going to reflect that. Excavation for retaining wall at Coles. We do have a small retaining wall that goes in up there. So they've been working on that this week. Cut to fill grading, that's when they excavate out of one where they're doing cut and basically push it down to a fill and compact it. Asphalt demolition in the old southbound lanes, that started almost immediately after they shifted the traffic. They started tearing up some of that asphalt that's not needed. Not all of the asphalt will be torn up. There are some areas where they're trying to use asphalt that was already there. Mass excavation, that's just digging dirt and moving it to another place. Drainage structure installations, there's a whole host of drainage structures down through there that they now can build because that traffic has moved off the southbound lanes, crossing pipes, culverts primarily. Asphalt milling, they've done some of that already. The jack and bores we've been talking about for quite a while. They're working on structures 8.1 and 12.20. We have meetings about the jack and bore every week. You know, for most of our large items, we have weekly meetings on to determine progress. I would expect that this is probably going to stick around for a while. On both of these structures, they've gotten into a significant bedrock, so it's really kind of slowed that process down. It's not holding up the overall schedule, it's just taking their subcontractor longer to get through there than they thought. And then relocating the aerial telecommunication lines, I believe Comcast is wrapping up, and there's some MCI is going to come and do their relocations. So this is a picture of what this traffic switch looks like. So we have all the traffic in the newly constructed lanes in the median. This is the phase 2 traffic shift. This is where they were before. You can see they've already started tearing out the asphalt and doing a little bit of grading. They've got some pipe work going on. Next slide. This is at North Hollymead. This is at Ashwood looking north. Very similar situation down here. They've kind of rubberized all that asphalt. That'll be loaded in the trucks and taken out. And you can see here they've got a graded median area or shoulder area, I guess at the time being. So where they don't have that, they've got barrier wall.
Dave, how is that traffic shift operated? How did that go operationally from making the shift to its current operation?
It's gone fairly well with the exception of one thing. The night that they did the traffic shift, when they were painting the lines for the transition, it started to rain. The storm popped up out of nowhere, and then when it rains, when they put that paint down, it starts to run, so they had to stop. So they put down the temporary, we call them tabs, they just stick down tabs or glue down, and so we had to deal with that for a couple of days until the weather dried out and they were able to go in and paint the lines. Now that they've gotten all that done, I think it's working really well. People know to just follow the lines. They're just shifting over, getting into those lanes. It's still a free-flow operation. The only thing I will point out, well, two things really. The first is we just ask people to obey the speed limit. There are a lot of people going a lot faster than the construction speed limit through there. And for their safety and for the workers' safety and everyone really, please watch your speed through there. The other thing is, what was it? The U-turns the U-turn at North Hollymead, that signalized intersection. Well, now that we've moved the 2 lanes closer together, that's signed for no trucks. So anybody driving a larger truck, box truck, delivery truck, whatever, tractor trailer certainly, probably going to have a really difficult time making that U-turn. It's signed for no U-turns to make for trucks, but we ask people don't try it. Just go up to town center and make the U-turn there.
So it is signed no U-turn?
Yeah, it's signed in like 3 different locations.
Yes.
You'll get stuck there if you try to make that in a truck. So this is the last slide. This is just, again, looking south, kind of getting a depiction of what these lanes look like if you haven't driven through there. You'll notice here, this is curb. That's the future median curb. So if you can imagine, a lot of this widening is going to occur to the west of 29, not to the east. We have to fit the shared use paths and everything in there and didn't want to impact those wetlands on the east side of the road.
I drove that Monday evening, and once you're on the lanes, getting on the right lane a little bit is getting used to it. Once you're on it, it drives much easier and nicer than the constrained 2 lanes that you had before.
Yeah, the asphalt, they did a good job, and that paving is pretty smooth.
Right, nice there.
The only thing is that encourages people to drive fast.
Probably, yeah, because it's so nice.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll cover the lane closures, nighttime lane closures, left or right, depending on if they need to bring stuff in. But quite honestly, now they've got all that space to work where the previously existing Route 29 southbound lanes were. Probably not going to need many lane closures, mostly if they're working on having to move some barrier wall or something like that. They don't want to do that adjacent to traffic. So over the next 2 weeks, pretty much the same thing. They cut to fill grading, mass excavation, drainage structure installations, constructing the retaining wall at Coles, so they're excavating it out now, they're going to begin constructing it over the next 2 weeks. Still working on the jack and bores at structures 8-1 and 12-20. After that, they've got 2 more to do, and relocating the aerial telecommunication lines. And lane closures, go to the next slide, are the same, nighttime, restricted to nighttime. So still have 2 lanes open during daytime in each direction, and traffic's moving pretty well. Any questions about 29 Lightning?
What's the general time frame for the next lane, for the next shift?
End of October, November, okay, if I remember correctly. Now, we noticed a change in the phasing on the schedule. And if you picked up on that, I'll be impressed, because I know stuff kind of just moved around a little bit between the last meeting, last schedule, and this one. And every month we receive a schedule update from Lane Corpsman, and what they did is they took an opportunity to merge some of the phases. So right now what they're working on is actually phase 2 and phase 5, because that work could all be done under the same lane shift. And what they've really tried to do is minimize the number of times they have to move traffic. So they moved it once over to the median. The next step is to move that traffic back to the newly constructed southbound lanes and move the northbound lanes over to the median. And then work on that northbound side, then move them to their final place. So everything is constructed with fewer shifts of traffic. And the fewer times you move traffic, the safer it is. People become accustomed to something. So.
But the next movement should be kind of putting them in the final position for where they'll be. Is that right?
Well, the next movement will move southbound lanes back to where they were, or even a little further over. But then the northbound lanes will move into the median. And once they construct that northbound side, then they will move to, everybody will be in their final configuration. Yeah.
Do you mind if we jump back to Rio for a second?
Sure.
The evening lane closures, during the closure period, the things kind of filtered down when there were evening lane closures. What are the lanes that are closed now that we have local lanes and improvements? Does it vary depending on the work?
It does. Yeah. It does. What we're going to see, one of the big things that we're going to see when they come to stain these walls, they're probably just going to close down the 3 lanes at night. So everybody who uses the local lanes, because they're down there on scaffolding or on man lifts, and to have 1 lane open down there is probably not worth it, the risk of somebody getting injured. They'll close, usually at night if they're setting the light poles, they'll close the outside lane, so it really is dependent on the work that's done. Now, what's coming up with the milling and overlaying, the entire thing is milled and overlaid. So they'll do, depending on which lanes they're milling that night, they'll move traffic around to different locations from night to night.
Great, thanks.
But once we get through the milling and overlaying, I think it'll start getting much more predictable. And it'll primarily be them shutting down the 3 lanes at night to do the stain. Okay, thank you. So Berkmar Extended, this one's getting a lot more activity. We're seeing work on 29 Widening and Berkmar really pick up now that Rio, the main portion of that work is done. But work on Berkmar Extended is including erosion control maintenance. I've said before, it's a long job. There's a lot of clearing out there. There's a lot of maintenance of those erosion control items, especially when we have these summer thunderstorms. You have to go out and replace silt fence and clean out basins. Excavating south of the river continues. They're hauling that up to the north side. Excavating for Pond 8 this week. Cut to fill grading. That's a little more apparent on Berkmar than it is 29 Widening, where they're actually pushing dirt with bulldozers. Placing and compacting embankment is continuing, and the vast majority of the alignment is starting to really look like what the final road is going to look like as far as grading, just with obviously no asphalt or anything. Pouring Pier Cap 2, that happened a couple days ago, so that's done. It's curing now. They'll strip that on Monday, strip the forms off, and then the piers are complete. And they'll start getting the steel in here over the next couple of weeks, and then begin setting the girders. Installing overhang jacks and prepping for the girder delivery. That's one of the things they're doing now. Beam seat preparation, so that's what the beams will actually sit on the abutment and the piers. Have to get those ready, make sure they're level. They've got 2 more blasts to do up near Coles, and I think one of them might be scheduled for tomorrow. We haven't had any issues out of those. people don't even really notice it's going on. Above and A drainage continues this week, and drainage installation, this is getting the water to and from these ponds. We've got pipes to put in for ponds 5, 7, and 8. Next slide. So just to give you an idea of some pictures of what's been going on out there lately. This is Pier Cap 2. It was poured on Tuesday morning, and you can see they used the pump truck. I think you've seen these pictures before with these big pump trucks to get that concrete up to the pier. Next slide. This is what it looks like with the formwork and rebar inside the rebar cage inside the formwork. So that's them actually placing the concrete. And then they're clearing out a crane pad here. We talked about this before. They've actually got the crane pad done. They have to put in the dunnage that the crane will sit on. But they're starting to excavate this portion. So up until just around this corner, they've got most of the roadway actually looking like the alignment. And they've been working from north to south generally. So this is the last section getting down south for doing mass grading in that area. So this was taken from the south side of the river. I zoomed in a little bit. So you see Pier 1, Pier 2, abutment B, and then the crane pad, and then the alignment will take off from there as they bring that down.
Dave, just kind of verbally talk them through, once we start seeing steel shipped in, how they'll be spliced and the lines of girders that'll be across them.
Yeah, and I think we got this question at the last meeting, and I didn't immediately know the answer to it. There are 5 girder lines. So
kind of show them what that means.
So yeah, if you notice here, these are the girder seats. You can see 5 of them. They're little raised areas that they're going to level out. So the girders will sit on those. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are really long girders, and generally they'll place them up there, and they have do field splices where they connect sections of steel because they can't ship a 250-foot long girder to the site. So there are 6 field splices per girder line. So each one of these seats constitutes a girder line. So that means that there are 7 sections of steel that need to be shipped for each girder line. So 7 times 5 is 35 total pieces of steel that will come in on trucks. Then they'll arrange them in the yard. They'll do the field splices, bolt them together, do any other modification they need to do, and then they'll lift them up and put them in place. They're going to have 4 cranes, 2 500-ton cranes, I think a 350-ton crane and a 110-ton crane. So these are massive cranes lifting really big pieces of steel. This is where we need to pay very close attention to the safety plan, safety meetings, and their erection plan. They do have a specific plan for how they erect the steel, place this one first, place this one next, how they're braced. When you're dealing with pieces of steel this big, wind becomes a concern. So they're really factoring in all those items that need to be thought about before they lift the first piece of steel to put up there.
Right, rightfully so. We've been very focused on RIO GSI, while all of this work has happened, which in and of itself is quite an accomplishment in the amount of time they've been working out there. And in a couple of months, what we're going to see is I think, going to be equally impressive as to what we've seen Dave and his folks do, the contractor.
When is this opening to traffic?
Well, this is not, the Berkmar is not expected, the contract completion date is October 2017.
No, what did they say?
Yeah, I'm saying anything. I mean, I think we could probably look at subtracting a couple of months off of that at a minimum.
Yeah.
I mean, there is another.
There's a lot of work to do.
There is a lot of work.
But just the
direction
of this bridge is.
And deliberating a lot of manpower for GSI.
Well, there's some folks that
They
are
don't have a
coming
bonus
back.
on this one.
Yeah, they did.
Did they have a bonus on this one? Okay.
Yeah, there's one for the overall.
There's one for the overall
Completing
completion.
everything.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I think they'd like to get it. So.
Another little kicker.
Okay.
I think we have maybe one more slide on Brookmore.
I didn't
Okay.
add the other one. Was the same grading on the south side.
Yeah.
It was grading on the south side.
Okay. So the lane closures, this week, just a flagging operation is they need to get trucks, concrete trucks in now. Not really a big deal. Next slide. Over the next 2 weeks, more of the same. Erosion control, excavating south of the river, cut to fill grading, placing compactment, actually getting the overhang jacks installed, stripping the pier cap. I'm talking about that's happening on Monday. Beam seat preparation, some drainage installations for a couple other ponds, 3, 4, and 8. Structure 10.1 to 10.3 installation, so they're now putting in more of these crossing drainage culverts. These tend to be much larger, 60, 72-inch culverts that are carrying streams underneath of Brookmore, and crane and girder deliveries over the next 2 weeks. So the girders, and I think if I mentioned this before, it was a mistake on my part. I think somebody told me they were going to have nighttime deliveries. The girders have to come during the day. They're oversized loads. DMV requires that those be shipped during the day. So they'll just come in on a truck, they'll turn on the Ryer Mills Road, they'll probably do a flagging operation to get them into that laydown area, then they'll unload the beam, that truck will pull out. So that'll happen about 35 times, and then there's also deliveries for the crane.
When does that start, Dave?
I believe it's later, not next week, but the following week, maybe midweek. But the other thing is when the cranes are delivered, those are delivered and assembled on site. They're very, very large cranes. They're not just brought in on a truck. So I'll enjoy watching that. Next slide. And we have the same anticipated lane closures, except I've added here the short duration closures for the crane and girder deliveries. So just talking about. Any questions on Brookmore? Okay. How do you want to do this? Okay, we'll do it.
Thank you, Dave. Hillsdale is picking up speed here. This week they are continuing to mobilize. From what I can tell, most things are in, the trailers are in. I see vehicles coming and going. I see email traffic. Folks are talking over final preparations. Environmental controls being installed. Survey is wrapping up. As their layout, the contractor's layout needs to take place. Continue utility relocations. Some of the internal commercial building work is being wrapped up the next few days here, and that's going to set the stage for the ability to cleave the building, partial demolition work for that, which is one of the areas they will want to start on. Submittals and permit applications are going through, and phase 1 clearing will begin here shortly. As Philip mentioned, we did have a scheduled submittal. The city and VDOT are both reviewing that, and what they are showing on that is within a couple of weeks, demolition work will begin. So we'll start to see some good progress there.
Hal, we shouldn't have any problem having that schedule filled in by the next meeting, should we? A few key milestones?
No, sir. We can do that. The city will approve the schedule.
Right.
If there are any hiccups, that we may have to show a change, but I think we can certainly set something up.
Okay, that's important.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I would just want people to be aware of is baseline schedules are always fluid until they're approved. Mm-hmm. We saw it with the design build projects.
Right. Yeah.
There'll be a little back and forth for a little while, and then it'll get approved. That becomes a project schedule. So
right.
If things start shifting around a little bit, that's to be expected.
Yeah, that's okay, as long as we get one on the table. Mm-hmm. Start with it.
Very good. Okay, next slide. Pretty much the same thing for the next couple of weeks. We'll have more definition on that schedule as that gets, the review is completed and it gets approved. But lots of the same activities here will continue over the next couple of weeks.
Hal, just based on what you've seen and what you know, without thinking about a specific day, what month will people see a project being constructed, start construction?
Certainly in September, you'll see, with, apart from any hiccups, the building will be opened up so that bridge access for the future bridge will be available. We'll see a lot of activity on that end.
So in September sometime, folks will know something's happening.
Sure.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Any questions?
Thank you. Item 7 was just an update on the budget. I know, Chip, that you have a meeting of your business subcommittee after this meeting and before the next meeting. Yes. But I thought you could update us on the budget. Remember the $100,000 that the county chipped in, the $200,000 that the state put in, and we had Chip and his group manage all of that. Maybe just let us know where the dollars.
So of the $300,000 through June 30th, we've spent just short of $195,000 of the $300,000. There's a little bit of gray area with it because of the contract. This says through June 30th, but we may still be getting bills for newspaper ads and other things that occurred during June, because there is a little bit of a lag of getting those invoices all the way through. But as far as what we've spent and asked for reimbursement from VDOT, it's been $195,000.
That's of the total 300?
Yeah.
Of the total 300.
Total 300, we've spent $195,000 through June 30th.
Okay.
We're estimating and taking a look at it right now. We anticipate continuing to run ads and marketing pieces. And right now it's getting to be more of a thank you for your patronage, your business, your patience during the process, and away from how to get around during construction. We'll be running that through late September, probably the first week of October, just starting to gear that part of it down, and we're actually anticipating a total expenditure of about $288,000 of the $300,000.
Okay.
Just some rough numbers, and we're asking the consultants prior to the next meeting to have us some real hard and fast data for you. But just to give an idea of what $195,000 buys you, we've had on the website over 600 map downloads. So the Get Around map, over 600 people downloaded, or 600 times downloaded that map for use. We of course had, I believe it was roughly 20,000 of the Get Around maps.
I think 30,000.
30, okay. Printed. We had over 5,000 door hangers printed and hung on doors. Over 5,000 website visits on the page. Through May, with the last numbers we had, was just short of 3.5 million impressions of some sort. That could be Facebook, website, newspaper ads, radio ads, but 3.5 million times different impressions were put out into the public. Emails, over 9,000 emails had been sent out to different email addresses, with over 1,200 of those opened up and clicked. What's coming up is we have a meeting with the businesses on August 15th. A survey has been sent to all of the businesses that both we've participated with through the Route 29 project, as well as the county's grant assistance program. And so we've sent a survey to them, asking them to attend that meeting so we can hear firsthand, how was it? What were the good and what was the bad?
I hope there's some strong follow-up to encourage those folks to attend and complete that survey.
Very much.
That's the best feedback.
It will be, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And so that's August 15th. The survey was sent back on August 9th, and then we'll be here on the 25th with some more hard and
Okay.
fast numbers.
Okay.
And if you think of things that we should be asking, the businesses, something in particular, please let me know. We'd be glad to try to get that out. And
It's just off the top of my head, but I think the thank you message is good, but also reminding folks that everything is still accessible now, and to patronize those businesses.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'd figure out a way to use the last 12,000 if it were me. I mean, that money, I'm going to put it to good, best use you can. Okay. So any questions for Chip? Just sort of an interim report, and appreciate you coming back at the next meeting.
Yeah, and we'll have something that will have the numbers
Yeah.
that you can take with you.
But that other information is good. I don't know if you have the survey information back by that next meeting.
We should.
Yeah, okay. That'd be really interesting to hear. Okay. All right. Anything for Chip? Okay. Hey, Dave, I'm going to ask you to you don't need to get up. You can walk through these from there. We talked a lot at our last meeting, the 28th meeting, about signal timing observations. And if you recall, just that week, the sort of software had been put, or the signal timings have been pushed out to the signals. Lane Corman's design team, RK&K, and VDOT's northern, I don't know why, Northwest Regional Office has continued to collect some observations and has recommended some tweaks that are going to be made. So Dave, if you just walk through that.
Yeah, so the week prior to August 2nd is when the signal timings were put into all the signals from hydraulic all the way up to Airport Road. So looking at the entire corridor, not just the right-of signal. And anytime that we make changes to a signal, significant changes, our contract says that the traffic engineer, as Phil mentioned, this is an RK&K employee, they're a sub-consultant to the design builder. Their traffic engineers have to go out and monitor the corridor, the signal, whatever we changed, and provide a report on what they observed. So we received the report yesterday, and it very much aligned with what NWRO was seeing, but what we in the office were seeing every day as well. And what we saw was that the southbound offsets need to be adjusted.
Tell them what offsets are.
So we've talked about a green band in here before. The green band is established with getting your offsets to each signal correct, so that when you go through a green light at one signal, you can expect to hit a green at the next signal. It deals with the distance between signals, the speed that drivers are driving at along the corridor, and some other factors that influence that as well, like side roads, green times, things like that. So we kind of expected that the offsets would need to be adjusted, and this was confirmed on southbound for the AMP. For midday, they found that both northbound and southbound needed to be adjusted a little bit, and they provided their recommendations for how much it needed to be adjusted to get that green band worked out. We also saw that, and we've talked about in this meeting, is adding some green time for the northbound 29 left turn at Woodville. And this is exactly what we observed, is during that lunchtime, at our last meeting, we talked about it looked really heavy. We were getting some queuing into the through lanes. They went out and looked at it and came to the same conclusion. So Grant Sanders at the Traffic Operations Center received this document today, and he's looking at reviewing it and implementing these changes, and that'll be one of them. Also adding some green time for the westbound Rio left turn to southbound 29, and some minor changes to the Rio Berkmar and Rio Albemarle Square / Fashion Square signals. So the next signals east and west of the Rio signal to kind of accommodate how traffic is flowing through the Rio signal, and not necessarily create a green band on Rio Road, but try to get as close as we can to move traffic through there more quickly.
But Dave, these changes, we're likely talking seconds in single digits,
Yes.
right? I mean, just keep it, which is not a small deal, but it's not tens of seconds. It's
No, we've seen
handful of
issues
seconds.
where, for instance, Woodbrook, I think exiting Woodbrook onto 29, the left turns there. Previously, there was some concerns that was backing up. I think we added 2 seconds there, and it really alleviated a lot of the problem. Fashion Square Mall, during construction, I believe we added 4 seconds, and the problem went away. So 2, 4, 5, 6 seconds can make a big difference. So, if you go to the next slide, we've got PMP. Again, northbound and southbound offset adjustments. Green time for the southbound approach at Rio Berkmar, and green time for the northbound approach at Rio Albemarle Square. So this is traffic coming from Berkmar at 29, for instance, and trying to go through the signal there at Berkmar at Rio Road, and then generally coming out of Albemarle Square, adding some, Fashion Square, adding a little bit of green time there to get that traffic out.
Thank you, Dave. We're going to keep this on the agenda for 1 or 2 more meetings as some of these observations shake out and these timing adjustments are made. Traffic data collection plan. One of the questions that Karen asked before the last meeting, and Chris Engel also asked, was, are we going to collect some data? And we are, but I want to be sure and put it in context for a moment. If you think back to the discussions we had about traffic, all of those were based on traffic analysis that VDOT conducted before work began. And those future years that we looked at, I think we looked at 2018 and 2040, those analysis all assumed completion of all of the projects. Obviously, they're not all complete. We still have construction going on here in the area, and Hillsdale is just getting underway. So just keep that in mind. But now that the GSI has reopened, it's going to be a question that's on more people's mind than just Karen and Chris. Is, well, what's going on out there, and how does that look? So we are going to collect some sort of just spot AM and PM traffic data at the 4 signalized intersections at 4 of the signalized intersections. And Dave and his traffic folks, or Nathan, who some of you may remember, Nathan Unberger was here when we were talking about all the Todd signing quite a bit, really helped us through that. We've talked a couple times and tossed some ideas around, and at some time right now the plan in mid-October is we are going to collect some data at the GSI, and that'll be the through lanes, the local lanes, all the turning movements from 29 north to Rio and Rio west to 29 north, at the Fashion Square, and this will be the signalized intersection at Fashion Square and 29th, at Woodbrook and 29th, and then on Rio Road East at that signalized intersection on the east side, at Rio Road, Albemarle Square, and Fashion Square. It looks like VDOT's going to collect this data internally with their own forces. Now, this isn't a formal corridor traffic study. We're not going to use this data to try to project future volumes because we still have this other work to complete. when the other work is completed, and some of this ties into, frankly, a discussion we had about Greenbrier, and not Greenbrier, Greenbrier in Hillsdale? Where they went the traffic signal? Yeah, it was Greenbrier in Hillsdale. And we said we have a plan in place to start collecting data, I think, in the spring after October of 2017. So it's important to collect this information, I believe, because it's an obvious thing that people want to know. And we can make some general observations about it, but we can't get too carried away with it, because we still have Berkmar to finish, Hillsdale. What I mean is, what we collect, we can't then throw up our 2018 and 2040 projections and say, oh, well, how are we doing? Because we really don't have the same context yet. So we'll collect it, we'll put it up on some sheets like we looked at before, but we'll make a point of noting each one of those sheets that you can't take it for more than it is at the moment. Now, if something really looks weird, it would give us a cause to scratch our chins and think about it a little bit. So that's the plan. Could we collect it in a lot more places? Yeah, we could. But at some point there, and I think we struck a good balance when we were talking on the phone the other day, because some of us wanted to collect a little bit more information. It just wouldn't be a reasonable expenditure. This makes sense. For signalized intersections, we'll get some traffic data collection for all the movements at those intersections, and then we'll talk about that a bit and see what we have. And it looks like this mid-October, which frankly is great as far as I'm concerned, that your guys want to get out there that quickly. It gives things time to settle out a little bit, and we'll see what we have. So that's the plan. That's the plan. Any thoughts about that? Okay. All right. Cool. I think the last real agenda item we had, following up on what we talked about a couple of weeks, I did take a look ahead at what would have been normal PDAP dates, meeting dates, and we said we're going to try the one meeting a month, and then we'll take a look at how we think we're doing. Those are the dates I suggest. You can look at your calendars. I'll send you a little reminder of that. It frankly doesn't matter to me which date we pick, but I just projected our calendar forward and took one meeting a month out, and I think that ended up being the second Thursday of each month. If those dates look okay, we can pop them up on the calendar and go from there. And I believe, yeah, any new business or wrap-up items? Good. Thanks again for keeping us tuned in on your committee there. Morgan? Mark? No. Henry? No? Okay. Next up is August 25th. So we shall see you then. Take care. Thank you, Linda.